Hi, I'm going to read part of my book to you, whoever's watching this. It's a really good book, so just listen. Okay. A great deal of what we know about surviving at extremes is owed to the extraordinary father and son team of John Scott and J.B.S. Haldane. Even by the demanding standards of British intellectuals, the Haldanes were outstandingly eccentric. The senior Haldane was born in 1860 to an aristocratic Scottish family. His brother was Viscount Haldane, but spent most of his career in comparative modesty as a professor of physiology at Oxford. He was famously absent-minded. Once after his wife had sent him upstairs to change for a dinner party, he failed to return, and was discovered asleep in his bed in his pajamas. When aroused, Haldane explained that he had found himself disrobing and assumed it was bedtime. His idea of a vacation was to travel to Cornwall to study hookworm and miners. Aldous Huxley, the novelist's grandson of T.H. Huxley, who lived with the Haldanes for a time, parodied him, a touch mercilessly, as the scientist Edward Tantamount in the novel Point Counterpoint. Haldane's gift to diving was to work out the rest intervals necessary to manage an ascent from the depths without getting the bends. But his interests ranged across the whole of physiology, from studying altitude sickness in climbers to the problems of heat stroke in desert regions. He had particular interest in the effects of toxic gases on the human body. To understand more exactly how carbon monoxide killed miners, he methodically poisoned himself, carefully taking and measuring his own blood samples for the while. He quit only when he was on the verge of losing all muscle control, and his blood saturation level had reached 56%. A level, as Trevor Norton notes in his entertaining history of diving, Stars Beneath the Sea, only fractionally removed from a nearly certain lethality. Haldane's son Jack, known to posterity as JBS, was a remarkable prodigy who took an interest in his father's work almost from infancy. At the age of 3, he was overheard demanding peevishly of his father, But is it oxyhemoglobin or carboxyhemoglobin? Throughout his youth, the young Haldane helped his father with experiments. By the time he was a teenager, the two often tested gases and gas masks together, taking turns to see how long it took them to pass out. Though J.B.S. Haldane never took a degree in science, he studied classics at Oxford. He became a brilliant scientist in his own right, mostly in Cambridge. The biologist Peter Medawar, who spent his life around mental Olympians, called him the cleverest man I ever knew. Huxley likewise parodied the younger Haldane in his novel Antiquae, but also used ideas on genetic manipulation of humans as the basis for the plot of Brave New World. Among many other achievements, Haldane played a central role in marrying Darwinian principles of evolution to the genetic work of Gregor Mendel to produce what is known to geneticists as the modern synthesis. Perhaps uniquely among human beings, the younger Haldane found World War I a very enjoyable experience, in quotations, and freely admitted that he enjoyed the opportunity of killing people. He was himself wounded twice. After the war, he became a successful popularizer of science and wrote 23 books, as well as over 400 scientific papers. His books are still thoroughly readable and instructive, though not always easy to find. He became an enthusiastic Marxist. It has been suggested, not altogether cynically, that this was out of a purely contrarian instinct. and that if he had been born in the Soviet Union, he would have been a passionate monarchist. Of all events, most of his articles first appeared in the Communist Daily Worker. Oh dear. Whereas his father's principal interest concerned miners and poisoning, the young Haldane became obsessed with saving submariners and divers from the unpleasant consequences of their work. With Admiralty funding, he required a decompression chamber that he called the pressure pot. This was a metal cylinder into which 3 people at a time could be sealed and subjected to tests of various types, all painful and nearly all dangerous. Volunteers might be required to sit in ice water while breathing aberrant atmosphere or subject to rapid changes of pressurization. In one experiment, Haldane simulated a dangerously hasty ascent to see what would happen. What happened was that the dental fillings in his teeth exploded. Oh my god. Almost every experiment, Norman writes, ended with someone having a seizure, bleeding, or vomiting. The chamber was virtually soundproof, so the only way for occupants to signal unhappiness or distress was to tap insistently on the chamber wall, or to hold up notes to a small window. On another occasion, while poisoning himself with elevated levels of oxygen, Haldane had a fit so severe that he crushed several vertebrae. Collapsed lungs were a routine hazard. Perforated eardrums were quite common, but as Haldane reassuringly noted in his essays, the drum generally heals up, and if a hole remains in it, although one is somewhat deaf, one can blow tobacco smoke out of the ear in question, which is a social accomplishment. What was extraordinary about this was not only that Haldane was willing to subject himself to such risk and discomfort for the pursuit of science, but that he had no trouble talking colleagues and loved ones into climbing into the chamber too. Sent on a simulated descent, his wife once had a fit that lasted 13 minutes. When at last she stopped bouncing across the floor, she was helped to her feet and sent home to cook dinner. Oh God. Haldane happily employed whoever happened to be around, including, on one memorable occasion, a former Prime Minister of Spain, Juan Negrin. Dr. Negrin complained afterwards of minor tingling and a curious velvety sensation on the lips, but otherwise seemed to have escaped unharmed. He may have considered himself very lucky. A similar experiment with oxygen deprivation left Haldane without feeling in his buttocks and lower spine for 6 years. Oh my fucking god. Like, this guy is crazy, which is just why I wanted to, like, read this to you, because it's so funny, whoever you is. But thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Sorry I messed up. I'm not a good reader when I know that someone else is going to witness it, so... Au revoir, mi ami.